Welcome to The World Awaits.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust.
I'm Kirsty Bedford, journalist, editor and travel writer.
And I'm Belinda Jackson, author, travel journalist and columnist, and we're your weekly co-hosts. Welcome back. Kirsty and I are time travelling this week. I'm in Saudi Arabia right now, and Kirsty's just landed on terra firma here in Australia after cruising around Scandinavia, literally cruising.
Thanks, Belle. We're so excited to bring you the news of our latest travels, but for now, we wanted to do a special Morocco episode. Our hearts go out to the people of Morocco following the earthquake that's devastated communities in the high Atlas above Marrakech, and we felt it was important to bring you some interviews from those on the ground about why it's so important to travel to the region.
And as we've already mentioned, as well as not cancelling your travel plans, there are other ways you can help too. You could consider donating via tour company Intrepid Travel, which has launched an emergency appeal, and all funds will go to grassroots organisations to provide emergency relief and support. And Intrepid will not take a cent for the administration, so 100% of your donations go directly to those in need. But we're going to start the episode this week with the topic on everyone's lips in the travel industry: adult-only flight sections, with the news that Corendon Airlines, a Turkish-Dutch carrier, is about to launch an adult-only zone on its flight between Amsterdam and the Caribbean island of Curacao.
The seats will be at the front of the plane, and there'll be 93 seats reserved exclusively for anyone aged 16 plus. And they're saying that they will have walls and curtains to ensure the privacy. Not sure how well that'll work, but anyway, let's go with it. And it'll cost about $75 Australian.
Yeah, which isn't isn't going to break the bank. It's the first time for those aged 16 plus, but here in Australia, a Scoot, which is a low-cost Singapore-based carrier, has Scoot in silence cabins on its 787 Dreamliners, and they are for travellers over 12, and I've actually flown and enjoyed them. I actually think parents are the strongest advocates of child-free zones. And also AirAsia X has also carved out special places for passengers 10 and over with a quiet zone on its A330 long-haul flight. So what's interesting about that is that this is being led by two low-cost carriers.
Great, I love that. And I have to say, I would very happily pay the extra money, even more than the estimated $75 for particularly on a long haul flight. I've travelled with my kids a lot, as you have, Belle, and I have to say we've been quite lucky because they're not screamers. But I have loads of other stories I could tell people about what kind of things they've done, but they definitely don't scream. And there's nothing worse. So it's not anyone's fault. But if you have to hit the ground running at the other end and you need your sleep, particularly when you're working on the other end, I've just found that really challenging. And like I said, it's no one's fault. It's just one of those things. But I think this is pure gold.
Yeah, I don't think it's a trend that's going to go away, given declining birth rates in first world countries, and recently I went to the launch of Virgin Voyages within Australia, so steering away from planes and into ships. If you don't have this cruise liner on your radar, it's the one owned by Richard Branson, and it's running adult-only ships that are going to have an Australian season between Australia and New Zealand. So yeah, they are pitching it. They're actually pitching it very heavily on exhausted parents who need child-free time so that they can go back. They really sell this message so they can go back refreshed and loving their children.
So no slides on those ships? Well, if there are...
I don't know about that, actually. I reckon they probably will put a few... It's very... Like the promo stuff I've seen, they're very fun. Lots of cocktails, and I reckon there's slides.
Well, staying with luxury travel, leading luxe travel advisors Virtuoso have also recently released some new findings on the types of trips people want. I'll be interested to see if you see yourself fitting into any of these big growth areas, Belle. And first up is set jetting, which is all the rage. So this is for people who want to go on the as seen on TV and movie locations. So it's been around for decades. When I was in my 20s and worked for Tourism New Zealand, we had a marketing campaign around the Lord of the Rings trilogies as Middle Earth, which lots of people will remember. And obviously it's still known that way. And that was just such an incredible success. And anywhere you went, where movies were filmed, you could see people with actually walking around holding guidebooks in front of their faces of the Lord of the Rings locations. It was quite remarkable, really. And it's an area that's just continued to grow, so it's such a popular travel sector, and as their researchers found, it's increasingly still growing, and that's due to things like White Lotus, where the second season was filmed in Sicily, and tour operator Family Twist recently launched an Emily in Paris tour, which is aimed at teen fans of the show, and of course the list goes on.
Yeah, I'm actually in Paris earlier this year. There was, if you've got tweens that have watched the Ladybug series, you can go to the cafe where Ladybugs, so it's aimed at all ages and stages. Indigenous tourism is also increasingly growing in popularity because people realise that to really get to know a place, you need to look and listen to the First Nations people. So places like Canada, where First Nations business owners and guides are partnering with tourism boards and travel advisors, it gives you a perspective from native artists, naturalists and spiritual guides, and they are seeing enormous growth. And in Australia there are more than 160 tours focused on Aboriginal culture. I was in Kakadu recently, and we'll be bringing you an interview from there in the next couple of weeks as well. And it was just so good to see, to really experience Kakadu, and Uluru has been very successful in this as well, tapping into and showcasing something that's incredibly unique in Australia, which is the world's oldest continuing culture. That's something that we should be celebrating, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely, and I've had some incredible Aboriginal Indigenous experiences too, particularly in Uluru. Cruising is another area that it's long had a cult following, and showing no signs of slowing. And I think it's because, I was never a huge cruise fan, but I have been on a couple of cruises now, and it is very easy. You literally just hop on, unload your bags, and of course you can travel to multiple countries, and it's all inclusive. So everything's taken care of. You've got food and all your alcohol and everything's included in it. So it makes travel very easy and interesting.
Kind of seeing multiple countries like a Kentucky tour, right? Fancy Kentucky tour,
yes, but not on a
bus.
In your lovely spacious cabin with a balcony, listening to the lap of the waves. And Virtuoso says that it's also increasingly seeing more solo travellers coming on board on cruises, and those taking cruises are actually getting younger, which is something I found I noticed although maybe I'm just getting older, but I did notice when I was on the cruise that I was expecting it all to be sort of 75 plus, and it really wasn't. And the stats show that 86% of Gen Xers and 88% of millennials who've cruised before said that they would actually go again.
Yeah, wow. And this one might not surprise you too much, but sport-centred travel is also on the rise. So that's travel for big-ticket items like the Grand Prix, Tour de France, the Olympics, all of the tennis is booming, and particularly participatory sport travel is also a hot ticket. So, you might go and watch the Tour de France, but then you will go and actually cycle the route yourself, or, take a ski with a former Olympian, which I think is probably... it's really an immersive type of tourism, isn't it? Rather than just sitting in the bleachers and watching a pile of elite athletes kicking a ball around while you scull beer from a hat, that's got two beer cans on the top of it.
We are showing our age. But no, I actually do. I love the idea of cycling stage of the Tour de France, or hiking somewhere that's part of a big event, and there are loads of people who, of course, travel for marathons and other running events. I love that idea too. And if you prefer active holidays like I do, why wouldn't you just combine them? I don't see why you wouldn't do that, because you can always add on a couple of days of recovery if you're the kind of fly and flop person anyway. But to me, the best sort of holidays are the ones where you get out and meet the locals and hike and bike. Which sort of area would you best fit into of those that Virtuoso has highlighted as growth trend areas, Belle?
Well, I do have to, before I get painted as a total couch potato, I have actually cycled one of the legs in the Tour Down Under when it was first sort of kicking off. So, and that was a real buzz because, we all did it on our treadlies and stuff the day before, and then the pros skipped through and did it in a quarter of the time the day after. And I thought that was really great because, you felt like a champ on the route. You're cycling it through, and it was really cool. I don't know, maybe I'll take the Indigenous thing because I really really think that, it's an enormous growth area, and it is an area that hasn't had the attention that that it should. So I'm going to plump with Indigenous tourism.
Yeah, and look, I've been converted a little to cruising too. So let's just go with all of them. And
okay, right. Yeah. Good plan. Well done.
You're listening to The World Awaits. Subscribe through our website at theworldawaits.au. As we mentioned earlier, this week we're focusing on interviews with those who were on the ground when the devastating earthquake in Morocco struck. The Tourism Review reported in May that tourism revenues in Morocco were up more than 50% in the first quarter of this year when compared to the bumper pre-pandemic levels of 2019. 4 million tourists arrived in the country in the first 4 months of this year, an increase of 20% compared to 2019. And tourism accounts for more than 500,000 jobs in Morocco. The country had a really focused campaign to attract visitors, and tourism professionals said they were expecting better results in the coming 2023 season. Those numbers have, of course, now been threatened by the September earthquake. Our first interview this week is with David Mannix of Arcadia Expeditions, who had lived in Marrakech for 5 years and had just returned a week before the earthquake struck. He talks to me about the fear he felt when the quake did strike and why it's so important that you don't cancel your trips to the North African country. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks, Kirsty. Good to be here.
So let's start by just tell us a bit about your situation and how you were basically just returning back to live in Marrakech, where you had lived before in the sort of days before the earthquake struck.
Yeah, that's right. I've lived in Marrakech before. In fact, I had 5 years here working for an Australian travel company. And then I went back to Australia for about 4 years and I'm back again. And I guess as luck would have it, we arrived about a week before the quake struck. So it's all about the timing, I guess.
Yeah. So what were you heading back there? What was the reason you were heading back there?
Yeah, my wife's actually from Marrakech, so we met when I was living here, and we decided to come back, especially after COVID. Things were pretty hard for her. Moroccan families are usually very, very close, and my wife's no exception. So we really came back to spend time with my family-in-law here after being locked up in Australia for such a long time. But I love Marrakech. I know it well, and I was very happy to come back. So we are planning on spending the next few years here in Marrakech.
And tell us a bit about because you're in the travel industry, and a little bit about your business and what you do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was working for Intrepid Travel over here in Morocco, and then when I returned to Australia, I started my own business called Arcadia Expeditions, and we specialise in sort of small group adventure travel, but more based on storytelling. Now, just like everyone else in the travel industry during COVID, we really struggled, and I actually paused the business at the end of COVID there, and are planning on, at some stage reopening that business. But at the moment, I'm just doing some contract work for some other Australian companies, and we'll get to back to Arcadia and start that probably in the new year.
Yes, and you do tailor-made tours, don't you? You do sort of high-end tailor-made tours?
Yeah, we do luxury tours. We often go to quite remote places. We were going to places like Cuba and Sudan and Iran, and we were trying to tell stories really. So we have small groups led by a world-leading expert on that story. So the idea was like it was a documentary without the film crew, where we really immerse ourselves into that culture, and then we bring fascinating people along to help tell that story. So another way I describe it to people is it's like a travelling dinner party where we're moving around a country and a region and bringing in just fascinating people to help follow that story and tell that narrative as we travel around.
Yeah, great. And so tell us exactly where were you when the earthquake struck, and who were you with at the time?
Yeah. It's I was actually at my house. I bought a house when I was living in Marrakech before. It's been pretty much empty since COVID, but we moved back a week before the earthquake hit, as I mentioned, and we live in quite a tall, narrow townhouse, and there's 2 bedrooms upstairs. My 4-year-old son Adam was in one room, and my wife and I were in the other room. We were still up. And then the quake hit, and it was just, we didn't know what it was. Marrakech is not known for its earthquakes, and no one can remember at a time where something like this has happened. So it was just surreal. The building really started just vibrating up and down, and there was an extremely loud noise. It was like a aeroplane was on top of us. And then so pretty quickly we did understand what was going on, and the first reaction, of course, it was our son. I ran into the bedroom. I mean, thankfully, he slept through the whole thing. I don't know how. And the noise kept getting louder and louder. I picked him up, and then we started running down towards our stairs, which go down to the first level. And it was during that time where the sideways shaking happened. And it was just, it's hard to explain, but it was, we were in the stairwell, and it was being like shot around like a pinball from side to side. So as I was running down the stairs with my son in my arms and my wife behind me, we were just being, shunted around from left to right against the walls. The sideways movement was extraordinary, as was the noise. So I really believed, I just thought, well, this building's going to collapse. There's no way this is going to hold up. So it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life. It actually lasted almost a minute. So it was quite a while. It felt like longer. But yeah, we were really thrown around. My wife fell down a few of the stairs. It was that violent. But luckily we got up and we made it to the front door, and then we ran down another set of stairs to make it outside of our complex, and everybody else was standing there. We were the last ones to arrive, so all the other residents were standing there just in absolute shock. But we made it. The building certainly didn't collapse. But I waited about half an hour, and then I went back in, and there were just cracks everywhere in our townhouse. I mean, every room has some pretty big cracks in it, and we just thought, well, it's not safe to stay here. So we got in the car, and we went to my family-in-law's place, who live on the other side of Marrakech, just to see if they were okay. And they were pretty shaken too. Everybody was. Driving through the city was also surreal. People had just emptied onto the streets. No one was in their buildings, and everyone was just wandering around in a bit of a daze. So we all slept in the car that night because no one trusted that there wouldn't be aftershocks, or knew what was happening with their building. So everybody slept in the car, and we didn't get much sleep. But we got up the next morning and just tried to assess where we were, and it was just it was pretty harrowing.
Gosh, you just can't really imagine, or understand that situation until you're in it, can you? And
yeah, that's right.
Yes, and like you say, that sideways movement must have just been so frightening. And so, were the family are all okay?
Everyone's okay. In fact, everyone we know in Marrakech is all okay, which is just fantastic. And interestingly enough, most people live in the new part of Marrakech. There's an old Medina, which is about 1,000 years old, but there's also a new town, which was originally designed by the French, and that's actually in great shape. As we, even just after the earthquake, when we drove through, everything was still standing. There was very little damage at all to the new town. So luckily, most people I know do live in the new town. And even the ones in the Medina were okay. The damage is probably not as bad as you may think. I think the media has really played it up a little bit in Marrakech. Certainly in the mountains, the devastation is just truly horrendous with a lot of those isolated villages. But Marrakech itself, look, there wasn't that much damage. There was certainly a few buildings collapsed in the Medina. But as I said, the new town and most of the apartment blocks, everything was fine, and I've got to say things are pretty much back to normal in Marrakech at least.
And not underestimating the yes, like you say, that the villages that were levelled, that have been levelled, and also the ancient ruins that have been destroyed, and all,
yes.
All of the families that have been, are now homeless. But not underestimating any of that. But like you said, do you think one of the worst parts is also now the perception to tourism? Because, while obviously there's been certain areas that have been completely decimated, it's the perception now is for people generally to of the widespread damage that maybe they may cancel their trips and just not go there.
Yeah, you're right there, Kirsty. It's the big worry for all of us now in the tourism industry, and in fact just the people of Morocco. Tourism is one of the main sources of income here as an economy. It's a $9 billion US industry here, and it employs directly it employs about 500,000 people, but indirectly it's many more millions. So a lot of the population rely on tourism. So they certainly need people to keep coming back. So I guess one of the messages I want to tell people is that it is absolutely fine to come back. In fact, there's tourists here right now. A lot of the coverage internationally has come from Marrakech, so I think people are thinking, well, Marrakech is not safe to go to. That's just not true at all. Let me give you an example of some of the coverage I've seen. There's a great video going around Morocco at the moment, posted by a French gentleman who's in the main square of Marrakech called Jemaa el-Fna, which maybe a lot of your listeners have been to. It's a very famous place, and he's filming around the whole square, and then he gets to one small mosque on the corner there, which is half collapsed, and the whole media is parked in front of that with all their cameras focused on that collapsed building, but nothing around. And I think that's probably what viewers see, and I understand why the coverage is like that, but it is biased. But what it doesn't show is that when you pan around from that mosque, life is completely back to normal. The markets are open, the museums are open, the hotels are open, and everything is absolutely fine. Yes, it will take time to rebuild some of those Medina sites, and in particularly in the mountains they will struggle, but Morocco is absolutely open for business, and it's open right now.
And so all of those people who are reliant, like you said, so heavily on the industry, not only have some of them got the grief and devastation of maybe extended family who have been impacted, and they've been impacted personally, and the grief and loss that may be associated with this earthquake, but also now they have to deal with the fact that they have no income.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, there's tragedy everywhere, there's no doubt. 3,000 people have lost their lives. We consider ourselves extremely lucky here that we've escaped the worst of it. But, yeah, it's been devastating for so many families. Those mountain villages are really very remote. And the big worry now actually is the cold. Winter is approaching here in Morocco, and it can get extremely cold. But I have to say the Moroccan government has done an extremely good job, along with the king here, to set everything up. And I'm really proud living here of what Morocco has done, and I think probably for all of us here who aren't natural born Moroccans, just the solidarity that you're seeing here. I mean, just ordinary citizens going out of their way to, buy as much as they can. They get in their own car and they drive up to the mountains. Where I live, which I was explaining before, where I was during the earthquake, that's quite not a busy road up to the mountains, but there was traffic jams up to the mountains because everyone had just loaded their cars with supplies and headed up. So the solidarity, the togetherness that we've seen here is just gives me a lot of hope. But yeah, look, that needs to be supported internationally, and there's two things people can do. One is to not cancel their trip and keep coming to Morocco and plan to come to Morocco to help that industry and those people who need it. And second of all, Morocco has to rebuild some of those villages, and they're going to need international help. The King's put in some really great measures to help with a fund to rebuild villages and individual houses and pay individual rent. So that's taken care of. But certainly, if any of your listeners are keen to donate, the thing to do is to help in the rebuild of those mountain villages that are going to take place in the next 6 months or so.
And look, let's just end on, as well as you have talked about obviously the beautiful culture and people there, what are some of the things that people can do and that you would recommend, what are some of your favourite things and some of the things that you would recommend people to do and to come and do and see and book their holidays now?
Yeah, sure. Morocco is a very diverse country. You've got the Sahara Desert in that eastern corner. That's absolutely worth a few days. It's just a stunning piece of desert, and there's beautiful camps and camel rides and all sorts of things out there. The Atlas Mountains, part of which is devastated, obviously, is a jaw-droppingly beautiful place with incredible culture and actually incredible food too. I like personally, as well as Marrakech, I love a coastal town called Essaouira. It's about 3 hours west of Marrakech, and it's a beautiful white-walled, almost like a village on the coast, which was at some stage occupied by the Portuguese. It's just charming. It's got so much character about it, and it's a great place to spend a few days with some cool ocean breezes after some of the cities. But yeah, look, the imperial cities themselves, Fez, Rabat, Marrakech, have great character. Make sure you stay in a riad when you come here. Stay in the old Medinas. Stay in one of the traditional old houses called riads. There's nothing like it in the world. It's just such a magical experience to be staying in these walled cities and getting lost amongst the mazes. And lastly, I would add just the food experience. Moroccan food is just sensational. People probably know tagines and couscous and those dishes that Morocco are famous for, but there's so much more than that. And people pride themselves on food. And as a visitor to the country, you just get spoiled here with just incredible food choices. And I can't get enough of it personally.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Let's just really interesting and fascinating to talk about it, and great to hear from someone who's actually on the ground, and that you're able to advise people of those sorts of things, and the fact that like you say, that they shouldn't cancel their travel there. So we wish you all the best with when the business is back up and going, and just generally at home there, David. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome, Kirsty, and thanks again, and for giving me the opportunity to speak about Morocco. It's a really special place, and I hope your listeners can support it.
That was David Mannix of Arcadia Expeditions, and we'll put all the links of how you can get in touch with David in our show notes.
Our tip this week is about where not to waste your money when you travel.
Yes, so USA Today analysed 23.2 million Google reviews of the 500 most popular tourist attractions in the world, and that was spanning 76 countries and 6 continents, to see how frequently the reviews mentioned the words tourist trap, overrated or expensive, and it lists those that are overrated and overpriced.
We'll put a link in the show notes because you're going to want to keep these in your mind. But the key findings were the Four Corners Monument in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado and Utah is considered the number 1 tourist trap in the world, while the Blue Lagoon in Iceland and Penang Hill in Malaysia are the top tourist traps in Europe and Asia, which, I don't know, I was up in Penang Hill recently and I didn't think it was, I thought it was really interesting. And in fact, it's got some great eco opportunities up there, and you can actually do these hikes. Okay, I'm going to totally dispel the myth on this one. You can do these great, beautiful hikes through rainforests up there where you see sometimes you see bizarre animals, giant butterflies, colugos. There's actually a really good cafe at the end of it. So, right, I don't agree with that one at all.
No,
but anyway, closer to home, maybe we need to...
Maybe we have rose-coloured glasses on, because I actually agree. Because closer to home, the most overpriced list included Hobbiton movie set, Waitomo glowworm caves, Larnac Castle and Sky Tower, which are the ones in New Zealand.
Really?
And I disagree with some of those too.
Oh, okay. Well, in Australia, Taronga Zoo, Port Arthur Historic Site, the Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary, and Mona, incredibly, Mona made the list.
The best.
I know, it was rated as one of the most overpriced and overrated attractions. Mona is incredible, and I don't know about this one.
Like they said with Hobbiton, I mean, it can be expensive. I just actually recently booked my 76-year-old mother and 15-year-old son on a trip to Hobbiton from Auckland, which is about an hour and a half drive. And so it was about 450 New Zealand dollars, but they're driven down there from Auckland and it's a full day out. And I actually think, and I've been there myself, and it is incredible. It is just such a remarkable day out, and it's so beautiful. And I think if you're looking for something as a multi-gen full day out too, it's really hard to find things that that multi-gen travellers can do. So if you can find something that both an elderly woman and a teen boy can do together, then it's probably worth the money. And that actually included that cost that I said before that I paid for them. It actually included, so they are getting picked up from Auckland and driven down there, and then I think they do get morning tea and they get hosted and a drink.
I don't think that's shocking. I mean, it's not a budget thing to do, but it definitely is a one-off. And it's if you are, the amount of money that you spend on things like Harry Potter, events, they are eye-pokingly expensive. So I don't think that's
And look, the Hobbiton's beautiful. It's a really large farm and they've retained all of the Hobbit holes that were used in the movie. So you get to walk around and get photos in front of all of these different Hobbit holes. And the gardens are meticulous. It's stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. And mine is much the same. I think it's just a great family day out. So I do have to disagree with some of those. Although we are in the minority, Belle, because the research covered quite extensive numbers.
Research wins. They all had a couple of things too. I mean, some things like the mannequin piece in Belgium, I think, and also the Little Mermaid. They came up in the results as well, didn't they? As overrated tourist traps. I would say, as a general rule for travellers, I would say avoid any statues of children urinating anywhere, because I can't see the lure myself. I don't know about you, Kirsty, but anyway, I'm sure it's very historic.
Well, there is one in the Eye Valley, in Japan, which I have to say is, I wouldn't go there just to see the statue of the child urinating, but it is just a spectacular place to go. So I wouldn't rule out that one. But yes, I'm with you.
I do remember seeing the mannequin piece, and it was just surrounded by people just looking sad and disappointed, and I was one of them as well.
We'll put the link, because there are a lot of places in there, obviously, and we couldn't talk about them all. So we will put that in, and that is our tip to make sure that you can. Yes, you can make your own judgment and obviously try and avoid the ones that are overrated and overpriced.
In our second interview on Morocco, Belle talks to Abdellah Amghar, who is the head guide in Marrakech for by-prior arrangements, which has been leading tours through Morocco for 4 decades.
Abdellah, welcome to the World Awaits podcast. We really appreciate you being here, especially at such an incredibly difficult time for Morocco.
Well, Bill, thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you for calling.
Our hearts are with you. We are very conscious of the tragedy that has affected Morocco now. I just wanted to ask, firstly, are you fine? Is your family fine? And is everybody from by prior arrangement okay?
My family, myself, prior arrangement staff, everybody here is okay. Our guides, our drivers, people in the office, even our mountain guides, even the guy in the mountains and his family, 70 kilometers from Marrakech, they are safe and sound.
Oh, that is such good news. Did you have guests in Marrakech at the time when the earthquake occurred?
Well, let me just reassure you. After I finish with you this talk, at midday, in a couple of hours, I have a city tour. Myself with my clients from USA, from America. I'm going to take them for 4 hours, city tour of Marrakech. And we have people arriving yesterday, the day before, today, to the airports and doing their tours very normal. I want to make something clear, which a lot of people don't know outside Morocco. The earthquake that struck Morocco, it was not in Marrakech. It was 150 kilometers from Marrakech, because the high Atlas Mountains are huge, are long, thousands of kilometers. So that's where it struck. It's 150 kilometers. So most of the losses that we have, human or constructions, it was over there. In Marrakech, I have to tell you, the situation is under control. Very few people died, few homes demolished, and that's it.
That is incredibly good news, because so many tour operators are saying, that it is they still want tourists not to cancel their journeys to Morocco, that people are always welcome, that they are safe in Morocco, and the best thing to do for the country is to continue with your travel plans. Is that right?
Yes, you're right. I have a lot of calls and a lot of WhatsApps and emails coming from people from all over the world to me. Most of them are travel agents. Some people they know during my humble experience, 25 years, from all over the world, Australia, England, USA, New Zealand, Canada. They all know, and they have all, insisted on coming. And they told me that the best way to support tourism in Morocco is not to cancel the tours. So they are coming. I have to tell you, October, there are a few cancellations. It's very normal. It's very normal. But still, most of people, they are so happy, and they have shown their solidarity with Morocco. Travel agents, they are all sending their guests coming to Morocco, even to Marrakech.
And then outside Marrakech and the High Atlas in the rest of the country, how has it been affected? If at all?
Well, as I said, 150 kilometers from Marrakech, and the other side towards the city of Taradant. That section, I will say, it's blocked now. It's blocked now. I'm not saying that tourists, they do go there on excursions, but still, a lot of people, they have excursions to go there. Now they do a lot of things in Marrakech, the activities in Marrakech, or they go to Essaouira, the other side of the coast. So luckily, Marrakech position is so important. It's a good base for many activities. There is so much alternatives. Even in Marrakech, people, they can spend 7 days easily doing different activities, from historical tours, garden tours, museum tours, food tours, interior designing tours, workshop tours. The artisans are there. So there are so much alternatives and solutions.
I personally have been lost in Marrakech for days. So in the Medina. So it's very easy just to lose 2 or 3 days actually being lost, which I think is possibly the best way to explore it, is just to find your feet, which takes a long time in Marrakech.
And that's the charm.
And that is the charm. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. This is a chance in a way then for people to explore different parts of the country. As you're saying, to explore different tours within Marrakech, but then also, Essaouira is a really, has been a popular place since, Jimi Hendrix was there writing some of his great works as well. Is there in other parts of Morocco, are you finding that there is growth in new areas in the country?
Yeah, well, I have suggested for a lot of clients. They contacted me. They said to me, Abdullah, we landed in Casablanca or in Tangier. They come from Spain or from Portugal. And I told them, look, they're coming to Marrakech. I said to them, go to Chefchaouen, go to Rabat, go to Fez, the big tours, the international companies like Cosmos, Globus, Trafalgar. All these people that do Spain, Portugal, Morocco, they are still here. I have seen them myself. They are still operating there. I work with, and they have so plenty of things to do, 10 days, 7 days easily.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a rich country that you can even just exploring the food in Morocco takes just is so enormously complex, and the design, for me, it is the design of the country. Outside the impact of the earthquake in the High Atlas, does that affect people who have been going there, because it's such a hiking destination up there in the High Atlas? Is there an alternative for them to explore, given that some of the villages have been absolutely devastated, and we are so horrified to hear of the lives lost up there, then to steer away from different parts of the country?
Well, just remember, we don't have only the High Atlas. We have the Middle Atlas and we have the Anti-Atlas. So thanks God, in this country, we are blessed. We have 3 mountains. So people who love hiking, people who like to go for picnics, people who like to enjoy nature, people who love to see the Berber people, they are homes in the Middle Atlas Mountains. The environment of Fez, on the way from Marrakech to Fez, you go to Ouzoud, you go to there's Beni Mellal. So that's the Middle Atlas. So it's not even far from Marrakech, and people they can see something in Marrakech for lovers of nature.
Did the earthquake affect the route going up to Mount Toubkal?
Yes, Toubkal now, for the moment now, because all the donations, all the caravans that help people, the associations, our association of tour guides in Marrakech, everybody's hidden there, taking food, kids. Winter is coming, so people are aware of that, and there is so much help. I just want to tell you something. The visit of the King Mohammed VI to Marrakech 2 days ago to Marrakech. He came to Marrakech and he visited the hospital and he met people just on the ground and he gives his instructions and orders. So to make everything go smoothly and gently, which is a tangible proof about the spirit between the king and his nation. So there is more help, there is more support, is very well maintained and under control.
That is really comforting to learn. You know, I mean, Morocco is, as you know, one of the best-selling tourism destinations, definitely in Africa and North Africa, and in all the world, particularly for tour guides as well. So the king has been there. The king is supporting the people who have been affected by this. Is there anything else that we can do that to support Morocco at this time?
Well, Bill, the best thing to support Morocco is just telling people the situation, how Moroccans are ready and to serve people, to make everything easy for them, from accommodation, from airport, the airlines, to the hotels, and also not to postpone or to cancel their flights or their holidays. I think from point of view, food and blankets, there is more than enough. People are helping with money because now they are trying to build kind of, I will say, waterproof shelters for people. The winter is coming in 2 months. Luckily, it's still warm in Marrakech today and in the environment. But we move to the second step, which is people giving donations to some associations, which is very well known, like Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF. It's called MSF. So there are so many actually people, they know them and they are now available. People that can support financially. This is the best way. The second best way is just to come to Morocco, because when we see them moving around, we feel that we are not alone, and we are not, and we will never be.
I think that's a really valuable lesson for the power of tourism, really, to connect people and to help people as well.
Yes.
So you're saying that the aid that has been provided is getting through, and that people are being assisted now on the ground. More
than any time before. I have to tell you, this earthquake, it just makes Moroccans stronger. The link, the harmony, people, it's getting stronger. It's already well known in the culture, in our culture in Morocco. We talk we don't say I, we say we. Starting from family to the community, to the neighborhood, to the city, and it goes all the way.
Well, it's a hard lesson to learn, isn't it? It's a hard way to learn the power of community and the power of support. But so we really appreciate hearing from you in Marrakech and from all of your team at By Prior Arrangement, which has very strong links. Of course, it's an Australian company that's founded there, and Carol Pryor has been telling the stories of Morocco for the past 4 decades.
I want to tell the world, and Australians in particular, that Moroccans and Carol By Prior Arrangement staff in Marrakech or in Morocco, they are waiting for them. to assist them from the first step till the end. Thank you.
Remarkable insights there from Abdellah Amghar, and you can learn more about Buy Prior Arrangement tours at buypriorarrangement.com.
That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods. And where can people find you, Kirsty?
I'm at Kirsty Writes on Instagram. That's KIRSTIE Writes, WRITES. And where can people find you, Belle?
You can find me at globalsalsa.com or on Insta at global_salsa.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.